Anyhow, welcome to the Mind of Iggy. You know, there's a lot happening right now. You know, like you don't know, but it leaves the question. It really does. It leaves the question. What's going on? What's happening? What's the deal? Well, I'm going to tell you a story. I may not look Native American to you. And the term Native American or indigenous person goes all the way down south, central through South America. Okay. So all of us who live in all those continents, you know, North, Canada, United States, all through Mexico, Central America, there's natives there. So when I use these words, when I talk about this, what I'm going to talk about is I'm talking about the indigenous people and the Native American people of South America everywhere. Now, I'm also European, and I respect that and I honor that as well, but also respect and honor the indigenous part of my heritage, the indigenous Indian, you know, the Quechua, you know. In Peru, there's over like 250 native people. Okay, but we all get lumped into one big pot, and sometimes people look at us like that, and that's it. You know, where I come from, we're called mestizos. We're white, but we're mixed. We're actually the minority of sorts. Okay, now, Native American people from all over look different. We have Native American people in Peru who are white, whiter than me, who live in regions of Peru. We call them los cholitos, okay, little blanquitos. But they're a native to those lands, but their tone, their pigment is white. Okay, do the research, check it out. What I talk about today, I really want you to use your brain. I'm only coming from my perspective and sharing. Is that if you want to fact check me on stuff, then fact check me. That's fine. You have every right to. But remember where your information comes from, okay? So what I'm going to talk about today is kind of what the Supreme Court passed a ruling today, basically doing the same thing what they did. They're doing to everybody, all minority groups and all indigenous groups and all women and groups that are different than them. You know, the Supreme Court has taken on a mantle of destabilizing the country and putting it in the favor of, you know, their political parties and agendas. I have nothing against Christianity. I have nothing against religion or anything like that. What I'm against is the ideologies that things have to be a certain way. You know, America used to be the norm, outside the norm of difference. You could come to America and you could be anything. You could be whoever you wanted to be, and you still can to some degree. But what I'm finding here is if you are too different, they may not like you. They may not want you. Now, these lands were stolen. I'm just going to be point blank up to the point. I'm not going to even mess around and pretend like you don't know what I'm talking about. You know, so, and it was your ancestors and my ancestors. You didn't do it, blah, blah, blah. But you have every right to create a better environment in a better situation. You know, the people in the reservations and the people who live on these lands, that's all they have. And for you to, the Supreme Court to overstep, you know, and strip something away that you don't even have a right to strip it away because that's not yours to begin with. You know, it's like saying, you're coming into my room, take my stuff. You know, these people have suffered a lot. Indigenous people all over the world have suffered under the hand of imperialistic ideologies, under the influence of the crown and monarchies and people of wealth. All indigenous people and women and children have suffered under the hands of wealthy politicians, people of European descent. The crown has been the worst. The Queen's family has been the worst, going into India, going into different countries, going to Australia, going all over, just and taking these things over like it's theirs, like it's their God-given right. It's not their God-given right to do any of that. And so I'm sitting here and I'm going, have we not learned anything from the Indian Removal Act of 1830? When the Supreme Court said that, you know, the indigenous people, the native people of those lands, you know, those were sovereign nations. These were sovereign people. But no, Andrew Jackson just stormed in there with his stormtroopers, and those were stormtroopers, and forced everybody out. And what could the Supreme Court do? Absolutely nothing. They couldn't do anything. They couldn't do nothing. So, you know, the same way. And you know why they did? You know why they did that? Because they knew they weren't going to have resistance. They knew that these indigenous people, these Native American people, weren't going to fight them, because they don't have an army. They've been depleted. They've been totally sucked dry from, you know, their beginnings. And yeah, I'm going to agree with you. There's indigenous people and native people who fought each other, you know, who, you know, did wrong to each other, because that's what people do. People just screw each other constantly, because that's the way they move forward into their next generational bloodlines. But, you know, so here we go, in the Trail of Tears. Those of you who know the Trail of Tears, you know, and all these people relocated. But no one ever talks about all the people who died, all the people who didn't make it, you know, out of there as they pushed west. They were forced out of their homes. Even the Appalachian people of Appalachia, you know, the poor people were pushed out too. The Cherokees, the Choctaw, you know, all the people pushed out of their homelands. Why? Because we had one greedy bastard who wanted to help white America make it. And this is the truth, but nobody wants to talk about it. Everybody's too embarrassed. You're afraid you're going to offend somebody. No, it's the truth. Because they wanted white America, white Christianity, white religion to be superior and to move forward. That's what a conquering nation does. That's what conquerors do. America, you're conquerors. That's why people call you, you know, colonizers. Because you've colonized someone else's land. You took their land and colonized it and made it your own and named it after the people and the things you do. And, you know, we're all colonizers. My bloodline has colonizers in it too, you know. We're the offspring of colonizers, and we have colonizer mentality. When we take away rights from people, when we allow things to be stripped like this. You know, when, you know, the Lakotas, the ghost dance, the massacre of Wounded Knee, if you remember that, if you don't know about it, you know, look this stuff up, you know, go read about it. You know, they called it heathen dancing. And, you know, the U.S. Secretary of the Interior, Henry M. Tiller, you know, he called it heathen dancing. It was illegal in 1882 to dance heathen dances. They were heathen dances. You know? The hell's that? Just because it's different and we don't polka, we don't do the square dance, you know? Listen, this country has been built on skulls and bones, literal skulls and bones of people. Literal death created this country, you know? And every day I watch these racist videos of how people just hate other people. And it just blew my mind to believe that it, and you know, this, you know, for a minute there I thought it was like learned behavior. But I don't even know anymore if that's learned behavior. It doesn't even feel right. It doesn't feel like that would be learned behavior. It just feels like it's in their blood. It's like it's in their system to hate things that are not white America or white South or whatever you want to call it. Now, I know not all of you are like this. I get that. So I'm not slam dancing everybody here. But everybody's like, well, you know, nothing like this. Well, it just happened. The Supreme Court just passed it. You know, took away from the sovereign nation in Oklahoma and took it, you know, and gave it to the states. You know, when do these people get a break? You know, I saw a video the other day where indigenous people, I call them indigenous because they're from this land. The Native Americans were talking about how they don't have bowling alleys, they don't have movie theaters, and they don't have things like that. And they don't have it because, well, number one, they can't afford to go. They could barely feed themselves. But this is their lands. They want to stay there. But they're artistic. They're creative. They do dancing. They do, you know, beading. They do, you know, creating regalia. They do all kinds of cool stuff. And I thought that was pretty interesting. It was pretty cool. And it was very quiet. It's a very different type of lifestyle. But yet, we continue to entrep on these lands that you know, it's like another country. You know, it's, you know, reservation is no more than another country. And when we go into it, we're no different than Russia going into, Ukraine. But nobody wants to see it like that. Nobody wants to believe that. And if you want to fight me on that, go ahead, fight me on that. I don't care. I'll prove you wrong. You can prove me wrong. We'll just go round and round. Because when you give something through a treaty and you give that land, there's a reason for that. They're self-governing people. They have the right to self-govern within the lands that, Manifest Destiny is another one, where we took lands from Mexico and then we, had everybody run down into the West and just put stakes down and create and, just take up wherever you landed, it was yours. What the fuck's that? It's like a free grab, So I'm going to tell you a story about my life. Since you want to have something a little more modern, a little more up to date. Well, for many years, I've been studying and learning traditional indigenous ways here in the United States. And eventually, I was learning the arts of sweat lodge ceremony through the Nemenhah people. And Nemenhah means the people. And they're a whole collection of indigenous people who come together because they don't really have an affiliation or tribe or a group of people. They all work together in unison to try to make a better place. And they have their own ceremonies. They have their own ways. They have their own ideologies and beliefs about stuff, like we all do. And so one day, I've been doing sweat lodge for almost 16 years in my house. And my neighbor's curious of what we're doing, and I invite him over. And he's like, oh, I thought you guys were doing witchcraft in there. I'm like, witchcraft? What are you talking about? So I invite him in, I show him the sweat lodge, and I show him, this is my old house. And I show him the property, and I show him the lands. And he is not convinced that we're not doing anything crazy or weird in there. And then eventually what he does, he calls the township on me. Because what else could he do? Can't really call police. But anyhow, the township came down on me and said that, what am I doing with that structure, which is a sweat lodge? And I told him, well, it's where we hold ceremonies, where we have our religious and our spiritual, gatherings. That's where we're in ceremony with Great Spirit. And I'm like, well, you can't have it there. You can't have that. You need a permit. I said, a permit for what? Because it's a structure. It's a built structure. I said, well, it's not a permanent structure. It's almost like a tent. I go, well, no, you need to get a gazebo permit. And I'm like, a gazebo permit? But see, here's the problem. What you don't understand is, as soon as you sign anything, you fall into the jurisdiction of that municipality. And they get to decide what you do or don't do. And basically, you've given them the free reins to say whatever they want. And many people don't realize when they do that. And so basically what happened was, they told me I couldn't do it. And I fought them. It went to the EPA court, actually, which is kind of weird. And I had to get a lawyer. And the lawyer had to represent me. And the Shepton ways, the ways we were learning and teaching in that sweat lodge. And we had everybody sign petitions. We had people sign letters and blah, blah, blah. It never went to court because the judge didn't want to have nothing to do with that one. He knew that was out of his jurisdiction, and they wasn't going to win that. And again, the judge said, well, why don't you sign? I said, no, because you know damn well, Judge, that if I sign that paper and I give them $35, they could tell me not to build it. They could tell me to tear it down and build it to their specifications. And they have no clue what a specification of a sweat lodge is to begin with. Because they don't have any concept of what it means to be, to dictate the religion or even know what someone else's religion is. It's out of their jurisdiction. They can't. But what they did do, okay, since they lost and they didn't win, is, this was at my dad's house when I was running for my father. They actually started to give citations to my dad. So they wanted him to paint his house. But the house was made of cedar wood. So you don't paint cedar, so cedar is one of those things you're not supposed to paint it, but they made him paint it. And he painted it. It cost him a lot of money, And then any little flaws in the driveway, they made him fix it. They wanted him to cut down trees. They wanted him to do, if the grass grew 2-3 inches, they would cite him. You need to cut your grass. So basically what happened was they started to use their other means of enforcement. And see, it's not that they lost, that's how they get you. That's how they screw you. They make your life difficult in different ways. So it doesn't have to be direct or indirectly. It can be from around the back door. And my dad finally told me, says, son, we need to, the sweat lodge can't be anymore. It's just costing me way too much money. And I support what you do, but it's just being crazy. They're being crazy with us. And, it hurt my heart that I had to take that down, because every day for 16 years on Sundays, the last Sunday of the month, we would do sweats there religiously. It was, and we had people from all over the state of Ohio and different states would come and do sweats there because they just liked the energy and what was going on. But Perry Township ended up finding a way to get us, in a sense, it made our life difficult because they didn't win their case against us. So when Native American people are persecuted, they're persecuted in many different ways. That's persecution, my friends. I felt persecuted. I know I was being persecuted. My father was being persecuted. They made him spend thousands and thousands of dollars that he didn't really have to spend on a house that, was worth more than that. His taxes were over $10,000 a year, but Perry Township wanted to be so cool, wanted to be right, that, they would just even call us, create citations that we had to fix the neighbor's fence that was facing our side of the house. It got ridiculous. And, finally we ended up moving from that house. We moved from that place. So, it's one of those things that they didn't even have, they couldn't even stand on the grounds that we weren't allowed to have a religious organizations or meetings at our house. Because, I didn't know that you weren't allowed to meet in your house and have meetings like that. In some of these townships, you can't have like a church in your house. And I was like, what the hell? I was like, this is how crazy it can get. So if you don't think your government will screw you, well, I'm here to tell you, they will find a way to make your life very uncomfortable. Okay? So Native American people's lives have been more than uncomfortable. They have been totally raped of their culture, totally disemboweled of anything that they were used to do. And, and gratefully, we have people who've held on to the culture and the religions and the philosophies and the ideologies of that. This government and its leadership have killed millions of people. Genocide. You want to talk about genocide? America is the most genocidal country in the world. I don't even know if that's a word. But they've created and they've done genocide. This country. There are indigenous people who no longer exist on this side of the planet. Because the Europeans came over here. They came over here with their cows and their pigs, and they left them here and they went back. Because the money at the time was wood. Wood was the big commodity back then. They left their blankets with their diseases, with their smallpox. Who does that? Really think about that. Who would you do that? Would you do that to your neighbor? Would you do that to your friend? Would you do that to people you know? Would you do that? But yet, we have people who will do that, who have no care and no conscious ideology that it's not a problem, that's not right. But yet they do it. And so I'm flabbergasted, just totally standing by myself going, who does this? And I'm watching here how the Native Americans right now, things have been repealed for them, and their sovereignty being affected because the Supreme Court, now all of a sudden the Supreme Court is valid. In 1832, it wasn't valid. Andrew Jackson just walked right over that and didn't give a damn and went on. So what I'm telling you guys is, if you think the Supreme Court is valid, are you just going to sit there and just let it happen? And they're going to make decisions left and right in your name, in your honor, and give it back to the states? What is truly happening in America? What is happening? What's going on? Is America crumbling that we can't see it? Is the infrastructure happening? Is our leadership, is religious zealots taking over this country again? The separation of church and state was for a reason. And now the Supreme Court is stepping into places and areas that resemble religion, resemble ideology. So I have nothing against someone's religion and someone's belief. But I do have a problem when you superstep on people's ideologies and belief systems because yours is different and you don't think it's that. It's like calling everybody heathens again. You know, just because, listen, a lot of people go out there and go, so, well, what would Jesus do? You know, ask yourself that. What would Jesus do? You know, since that's the big, you know, call word out there. What would Jesus do? You know, if you can't answer that, then you have a lot more to think about. You know, being quiet ain't going to help anybody and just sit around. But I watch everybody that I know and they're just really quiet and they don't say too much about it. It's almost like, well, you know, it happened. You know, what can I do? They're power. They got the power. You know, they got the army. They made the laws, you know. Laws are made to be broken, man. You know, you have to stand up and believe what you believe in and fight for it. This is how this country was formed. You know, all that wasted energy and all those deaths and all those people who died to make this country what it is. You know, when you look at it, they probably look at us and go, man, what the hell is going on with these people? You know? Okay, so the United States was founded under the pretense of religious and Freemasonry, you know? Because that's kind of what it was. The pretense of Christianity and Freemasonry. Which I have no problem with either one of them. Well, the only problem is when you try to force your belief system onto other people, you know, who don't really want your belief system, who don't want it. So here we are. What's next? You know, there's a small minority. The minority is white America is becoming a small minority. Why? Because you guys don't have sex. You don't breed. You're being outbred by blacks, Hispanics, and Muslims and people from other countries. You have 1.5 kids. The average Muslim family has 6 kids. The average Latino family has 5 point something kids. You know, Asian families have 4 to 5 kids, 3, 4, 5 kids. Okay, so if you're white America, yeah, I would be concerned because you're going to be on the bottom. You're going to be on the bottom because you're not the majority anymore. You have majority rule because you have your leadership is in there as majority rule. But that's changing. That's going to change. These kind of things cause change. But it's going to be slow, progressive, painful change. You're going to see more black leadership. You're going to see more Asian leadership. You're going to see more Muslim leadership. You're going to see more Hispanic leadership. To the point, one day, we're going to have a Hispanic president. We may have, you know, an Asian president. You know, the story of, you know, you look at Trump, you look at Biden, they don't really fit the demographics of anybody, personally, in my opinion. Because they don't relate. They're from a whole different time period. They're from a whole different segment of life, which is phasing out. It's like that old guard is grasping on to the last straws that it has because it knows that it's going to change. It knows that it's not going to be the top of the cream of the pack anymore. The Republican Party is afraid. The Democratic Party is afraid. Listen, if you tell me, oh, the Democrats, no, they're both afraid. Okay? They're both afraid because they lose power. When another group of people come in from different ethnicities, they're going to take over. Just like the Italians, the Irish, the Germans, the English. You know, that was that group. That was that wave. Now there's a new wave of people coming in, and this is where the fear is at. Nobody talks about this. The fear is now we're going to have people from the Middle East, people from South America, Central America, Mexico, people from Asia, you know, people of different descents and different colors coming into our country and becoming new leaders. You know, in about 50 years, America will not look the same. America will not be the same demographics that you see. You won't see a lot of old white guys in power like they used to be, entrenched in there and buried in there and creating their legacy, creating their wealth off our backs. You know, too many people just let things roll. This is why it's a republic and not a democracy. This is not a democracy, folks. If you think this is democracy, then you need to look up what democracy means in the dictionary and get corrected. This is a republic. This is the Republic of the United States. This is a corporation. This is something that is not what you think it is. And this is why there's a strong pull to gain power and control and suppress people so they don't become stronger. They don't want the people to be stronger. They don't want to give us power. They want to strip us of our dignity and our rights. You don't see it because you're comfortable. I'm comfortable. You're all comfortable. We're all comfortable. Oh yeah, well, you know, fine. I got my McDonald's and my Starbucks and my Chipotle, and I'm happy. You know, if that pisses you off and you get resented that, well, I'm sorry, man. Chipotle ain't Mexican food, man. If you think that's Mexican food, that's processed food, man. That's what am I talking about? But my point is this, you know, things are changing. Things are changing. And the change is uncomfortable. And people don't like change. People don't like when I talk about this kind of stuff. Because they think I become militant. They think I become angry, that I'm angry. Yeah, I'm angry. I'm upset because I'm watching this and going, how do I help? How do I make things better? Well, shut your mouth, you know. No, I'm not shutting my mouth anymore because you know what? When I shut my mouth, it still happens. If I open my mouth, it still happens. So it doesn't matter. Might need somebody who's better equipped to hear my message and be able to carry my message. Just because I speak it doesn't mean I'm going to be the one who initiates it. Because I speak it, somebody else initiates it. But right now, America, you are in crisis. You may not see it, you may not believe me, but we are in crisis. You go down south, it's a whole different ball game down there. It's a whole different world. You know, you go out west, it's a whole different ball game. It's a whole different world. We're all landlocked in this little Midwestern towns and these little Midwestern ideologies. And you know, this is only a piece of America. You go to New York, you go to anywhere, it's different. I would not be surprised if one day America splits itself into quadrants and becomes these countries into themselves. Because it feels like that sometimes. For me, it feels like that's what's happening. It feels like that's what's playing out. It's crazy. What will happen next? I don't know. I'm sure gay people and lesbians and transgenders and all that, they're next on the list of being attacked. And you know, if that bothers you that there are people like that, well, they're people, they're humans. They're just different than you. They have a different way of living, a different way of believing. If it bothers you, no one says you have to go be with them. You can live in your own little bubbles, in your little suburbs, in your little places. You know, the reality is these people have been with us. And I don't want to say these people because that's not right. But gays, lesbians, trans, all these people have been around for centuries. This is not like something out of the just existed, just came out of nowhere. This is new. This is not a new thing. These people exist. Indian people and indigenous people exist. Native American people exist. We don't just live on reservations like you might think. We mingle through. Your friend Iggy is a Native American Peruvian. I'm a native from Peru. But you see me white because I look kind of white. I look like a Spanish guy, you know. But my blood runs native too. And I have a lot of respect for the indigenous people and their cultures and their ways. But I watch the European white conquest, the colonization and what it's done to the world. Not just here, to the world. The colonists in their colonization ideology have really changed the demographics of the world. But that demographic's changing, and that's why they're afraid. They're very much afraid to lose the strong grip and the stronghold. Because, you know, especially in this country, they're being outbred by other types of races and ethnicities. And when you're outbred, you're outnumbered, and you don't longer have. This is what happens. You're outbred. But nobody sees that. This has actually been proven. This is actually factual information. Look it up. If you don't believe me, look up the depletion of white America. Who's the next group of people who are outbreeding white Americans? Because I told you, 1.5 kids ain't going to keep this country white. When you have Hispanics having 5 to 6 kids, and people from Muslim religions and ideologies in the Middle East having 6 to 7 kids, and Asian's family having 3 to 4. You just, the math doesn't work. All right, guys. Well, you guys have a great evening. I'm pissed off of what's happening right now, but I won't be pissed off too much longer. But it's happening right before our eyes. Things being stripped from us because we're too comfortable. We're just complacent. We think it's okay. Well, nothing's going to happen. Well, it's happening. It's happening because the radical ideology is too radical, and the religious ideology radical is too radical. There's no middle ground. There's nowhere to talk together. There's nowhere to see the commonalities because nobody wants to see it. We're either too extreme right or too extreme left. There's the moderates in the middle never are heard. We're just looked at and laughed at, you know. But when they strip it, what are you gonna do? You're just gonna sit there and cry? You're just gonna sit there and go, oh well, you know, what can I do? Oh, it's just little old me. Nothing I can do. They've got power. They got too much strength. Sure they do, but so do you. In numbers, but it doesn't have to be violent. You just have to be defiant sometimes. And defiance is stronger than violence because when you're defiant, you know, it's harder to pin anything on you when you're defiant. When you're violent, they arrest you. They take you. They make your life miserable. They stomp you. And that's what they want. They want to stomp you. They want to breed it out of you. They want to force it out of you. So you can be compliant, good little citizens of the United States of America. Whatever America you want, you're getting. If you want it different, you're going to have to figure out strategies and ideas to make it different. Because the way we're going, it ain't working. Whatever you think you're doing right now is not working. It's not. It's not working. Stop crying. Stop being mad. Stop being upset. And figure out how you're going to move through this energy. And how you're going to change things. Burning things down, you know, shooting people, hurting people, doesn't solve anything. Get into politics. Get into your civics programs at in home. You know, get down there. Get in the start in the bottom. Work your way up. Even if you have to be the leader of your block, you know, whatever. You know, area committee, community thing. And then you can just move. You progress. But I don't know what happens next. I don't know what happens next because I don't know where people want to go. I know where I want to go, but I don't know if everybody was willing to go there. More people need to share their voice. And, you know, and if someone wants to delete you and don't want to be your friend anymore, so what? Move on. They were never your friends to begin with, okay? Because your friends will listen to you and have compassion for you and understanding for you. It doesn't matter who you voted for, who you were aligned with, as long as you're not doing harm to other people, okay? Those are friends. And never forget that. True friends will always respect that you're different and you have a different idea. Because your friends will never be exactly like you. You don't want your friends to be like you. You want your friends to be different. You want your friends to have a commonality, but you don't need to be cloned. You just need people to know that you see life like they do with joy and vigor and fun. But also you see also the nasty stuff. You don't always agree with that. I've got a lot of friends who push me and challenge me and correct me, and I'm grateful for them. Because sometimes I get off a little bit. But I'm glad I have my friends there, and it's not comfortable sometimes to know when you're not right. And when I'm not right, I will admit that. And when I'm wrong, I will admit that. Because you know what? When you admit it, then no one can do anything to you. No one can hurt you. No one can say, well, yeah, well, shit, Iggy admitted to it. Well, what's left to do, you know? But as soon as you try to combat it and try to prove your point and try to be, you know, abrasive and whatever, just push people away. No one ever hears you. You're just another nut job. You know, just another guy with who's got mommy issues or whatever. That's how they label you. That's how they pinhole you. So be careful. Choose your words wisely. Everything's a spell. Spell casting is a powerful medicine. And every day we're spell casting. As I spoke these words today, I was spell casting too. I hope to see a better America. I hope to see a better unification of people. I'm not looking for a utopian society. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for people to understand and embrace each other and say, hey, you know what, we're different, but let's get along. You know, utopia is not what we need. It's not. What we need is a way for us to understand each other and to embrace each other's differences and not get butthurt about it. Okay? Because we get too butthurt when things don't sound like what we want to share. And then there's always that person who always tries to say, well, it's this way or not my way, and if you're not with me, you're against me. Is that all you got? Is that really just all you're going to say to me? If I'm not with you, I'm against you? Wow. You know, that kind of talk is so stupid. You know? No. I'm not against you. I'm not with you. But I understand that you have a different point of view. And I respect that. I mean, I may not be in alignment with it, as you may not be in alignment with me. But I would never be against that you have different beliefs than I do. And with that, I want to say, have a good evening. Ho'oponopono. What is above is below. It's good to be here. Iri Sikwi. Aho. Take care, my friends. Peace and love.